First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Epictetus. Powerful words, right? What if I told you that most people sabotage their own influence every single day? Not by what they do, but by what they say. Every word you speak, every sentence you stretch out has weight. Misused, it drains your authority, scatters your presence, and diminishes the respect people have for you. But here's the twist. By learning to say less, to pause, to wield silence like a sword, you can command attention, earn respect, and achieve more than you ever thought possible, without shouting, over-explaining, or performing. This isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being deliberate, strategic, and magnetic in the way the Stoics mastered their words and their energy. In this video, we're diving deep into the Stoic law of power. You're going to discover how mastering restraint in speech can turn ordinary interactions into moments of influence, make your presence unforgettable, and give you leverage in every area of life. Watch till the very end, because the insights here are cumulative. The real transformation happens when you internalize the final principle. By the time we finish, saying less will feel less like restriction and more like your superpower. Number 1, speak only when necessary. Be silent for the most part, or speak merely what is necessary and in few words. That was the advice of Epictetus, not because he feared conversation, not because he lacked confidence, but because he understood something most people never grasp. Every unnecessary word weakens your presence. Every impulsive reaction leaks power. You don't rise by filling the air. You rise by mastering it. You've been conditioned to think that being heard means speaking more, explaining more, defending more, justifying more, but look closely at your own experience. The more you rush to respond, the more tangled you feel. The more you try to clarify yourself, the less solid you sound. There is a quiet authority in restraint, and you can cultivate it. When you speak only when necessary, you force your mind to filter. You begin asking yourself, is this useful? Is this true? Is this within my control? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let your speech be better than silence, or be silent." That's a high standard. It demands discipline. It requires you to pause in that heated second when your ego wants to jump in. But that pause is where power lies. Start noticing your impulse to fill gaps, the awkward silence in a room, the need to respond instantly to a message, the urge to correct someone. Most of it is ego trying to protect its image. You don't need to obey that impulse. Let the silence breathe. Let others reveal more than they intended. When you hold back, you observe more. When you observe more, you understand more. And when you understand more, your few words land with weight. This is not about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming intentional. There's a difference. You're not withdrawing from life. You're choosing your moments. Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Much of our speech is the product of that imagination, assumptions, projections, anxieties spilling out unchecked. When you discipline your tongue, you discipline your thinking. The two are inseparable. Practice compressing your thoughts. Say what needs to be said in the fewest words possible. Cut the fluff. Remove the defensive tone. Speak plainly. You'll notice something subtle but profound. People lean in. They pay attention because rarity creates value. When you talk less, your words become scarce. And scarcity commands respect. But this requires inner steadiness. If you're internally chaotic, silence feels unbearable. You'll want noise to soothe the discomfort. So build your tolerance for quiet. Sit alone without distraction. Don't reach for your phone. Don't narrate your thoughts out loud. Just observe. Let your mind settle like muddy water left undisturbed. Over time, you'll crave clarity more than chatter. Here's a practical exercise for you. For the next week, delay your responses, not in a passive, aggressive way, in a disciplined way. When asked a question, take one full breath before answering. When tempted to argue, wait 5 seconds. Feel the space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl described that space as the source of our freedom. The Stoics practiced it long before it had a name. In that space, you choose strength over impulse. Another practice: end conversations first, not abruptly, calmly, Once your point is made, stop. Resist the urge to add one more explanation. Let your final sentence stand on its own. You'll feel the itch to continue. Ignore it. That itch is attachment to approval. Release it. Walk away knowing your words were enough. You also need to become comfortable with being misunderstood, at least temporarily. When you speak less, you won't constantly clarify your intentions. That can feel risky. But over-explaining is a subtle form of insecurity. If your actions are aligned with your values, time will reveal your character. You don't need to narrate it. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's the standard. Silence sharpens perception. When you're not busy preparing your next sentence, you actually listen. And listening is leverage. You begin to detect tone shifts, hesitations, contradictions, emotional undercurrents. Most people miss these because they're too busy talking. You won't. Your restraint becomes your advantage. This doesn't mean suppressing your truth. It means refining it. When something truly matters, speak clearly and firmly. But do it without excess emotion, without dramatics. State your boundary once, calmly. If it's ignored, enforce it through action, not repetition. Repeated words dilute authority. Quiet consistency builds it. You may worry that speaking less will make you invisible. It won't. It will make you deliberate. There's a magnetism to someone who doesn't chase attention. People project significance onto mystery. When you don't reveal everything, curiosity grows, and curiosity is influence. Begin auditing your daily speech. At night, reflect. Where did you talk too much? Where did you enter? Where did you speak from ego instead of purpose? Don't judge yourself, just observe. Awareness precedes mastery. Marcus Aurelius journaled constantly to refine his inner world. You can do the same. Write down one conversation each day and analyze it. How could fewer words have made it stronger? There's another layer to this practice. Speaking less conserves energy. Words are output. Every sentence spends mental fuel. When you reduce unnecessary output, you redirect energy toward execution, toward craft, toward building something meaningful. The loudest people often achieve the least because they dissipate their force through constant expression. You will not. You are training yourself to become immovable, calm, precise. When others argue loudly, you remain steady. When they overshare, you reveal selectively. When they react, you respond. This contrast alone elevates you. In a noisy world, quiet composure stands out like a mountain in a storm. And yes, this will feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel overlooked. You may feel the temptation to prove yourself. Let that discomfort train you. Power grows in restraint. Every time you choose silence over impulse, you strengthen your will. Every time you say only what is necessary, you carve away weakness. Remember this, your goal is not to dominate conversations. It is to master yourself within them. If you can control your tongue, you can control your temper. If you can control your temper, you can control your actions. And if you can control your actions, you control your destiny. So today, start small. Speak 20% less than usual. Remove filler words. Ask more questions than you answer. Hold eye contact. Finish your point and stop. Let silence punctuate your presence. Let your calm do the persuading. The Stoic law of power is simple but demanding. Say less, achieve more. Your words are tools, not decorations. Use them with precision, with purpose, with restraint. And watch how your influence expands, not because you're louder, but because you're rarer. Number 2, let actions carry your authority. There is a quiet kind of power you step into when you stop trying to prove yourself with words. It feels strange at first, almost uncomfortable. You've been taught to explain, to justify, to defend your position. But the Stoics understood something deeper. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That's it. That's the shift. Instead of narrating your intentions, you embody them. Instead of announcing your standards, you live by them. You let actions carry your authority. You don't need to declare your discipline, show it. You don't need to broadcast your ambition, work. You don't need to threaten consequences. Enforce boundaries calmly and consistently. The more you talk about what you will do, the more you dilute the force of actually doing it. Words can be borrowed, actions cannot. Words are cheap when repeated too often. Action, however, has weight. It leaves an imprint. You gain authority the moment you detach from the need to be verbally validated. Think about what Epictetus taught. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. You don't have to tell people you are calm. You demonstrate calmness in moments that test you. You don't have to convince others you are capable. You move with steady competence and let the results speak. When you stop announcing your moves become unpredictable. And unpredictability carries presence. So start small. Today, resist the urge to over-explain yourself. When you make a decision, state it clearly and briefly. Then act. Notice how powerful that feels. Notice how much energy you reclaim when you're not constantly justifying your existence. You'll feel the silence stretch around you. At first, it might feel exposed. Stay with it. Authority grows in that space. There's something magnetic about a person who doesn't rush to speak. Seneca warned that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of our unnecessary talking comes from imagined fears, fear of being misunderstood, overlooked, underestimated. But what if you stopped reacting to those inner anxieties? What if you allowed your work, your character, your consistency to answer on your behalf? That is strength without noise. When you rely on words to establish dominance, you enter a competition of volume. When you rely on action, you exit the competition entirely. You no longer need applause. You no longer crave agreement. You operate from alignment. And alignment doesn't shout, it stands firm. Here's a practice for you. For the next week, choose one area of your life where you typically overpromise. Maybe you talk too much about future plans. Maybe you declare big changes before you've committed internally. Stop. Say less. Replace every public declaration with a private commitment. Write it down. Then execute quietly. At the end of each day, review what you did, not what you said you would do. Train your mind to measure progress in action, not intention. Another exercise, practice controlled pauses. When someone questions you or challenges your path, do not rush to defend yourself. Take a breath. Count to 3. Respond briefly if needed, or don't respond at all. Let your consistency over time dissolve doubt. Authority built through reaction is fragile. Authority built through composure is unshakable. You have to understand this deeply. The need to constantly assert yourself is often a sign that you don't fully trust yourself yet. The Stoics didn't chase external approval because they anchored themselves internally. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that other people's opinions were outside his control. Why exhaust yourself arguing with forces you cannot govern? Focus instead on your conduct. That is yours. That is sovereign territory. When your behavior aligns with your values, you don't feel compelled to advertise your integrity. It becomes obvious. When you consistently keep your word, you don't need to repeat it. When you maintain your standards, people adjust. And if they don't, you don't beg for respect, you withdraw access, quietly, without drama. That withdrawal itself becomes a statement. Authority is not loud, it is steady. It does not chase, it does not plead, it does not spiral into long explanations. It moves with intention. You can cultivate this. Every day is a training ground. Begin by tightening your speech. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is it true? Is it useful? If it fails one of those tests, let it go. The discipline of silence sharpens the blade of your words. When you do speak, people listen because you don't waste sound. Also, build the habit of finishing what you start without announcing it. This is harder than it sounds. Your ego will itch to share progress prematurely. Resist it. Channel that energy into execution. Let completion be your announcement. The satisfaction you feel from silent achievement is deeper than any external praise. And remember, power rooted in action is cumulative. Every quiet promise you keep strengthens your internal foundation. Every time you choose composure over reaction, you reinforce your authority. Every time you let results speak instead of engaging in debates, you rise above noise. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood. Accept that. The Stoics accepted that control over perception belongs to others. Your task is not to manipulate perception. Your task is to master conduct. As Epictetus said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself against the accusations, but reply, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." That is radical composure. That is freedom from the compulsion to self-justify. Let your routine become your reputation. Let your consistency become your voice. Let your boundaries become your declaration. Over time, you will notice something subtle but powerful. People stop testing you as much. They sense your groundedness. They feel your steadiness. You don't need to threaten consequences because your actions already communicate them. So step into this. Today, speak less than usual. Deliver more than expected. Keep one promise silently. Hold one boundary calmly. Walk away from one unnecessary argument. Let that be your practice. The Stoic law of power is simple but not easy. Say less, achieve more. When you let actions carry your authority, you move differently. You conserve energy. You command respect without chasing it. You become difficult to provoke, impossible to manipulate, and steady in the face of chaos. And the most powerful part, you no longer need to convince anyone of who you are. You simply are. Number 3, avoid explaining yourself constantly. Avoid explaining yourself constantly. Let that sink in for a moment. You don't owe the world a running commentary of your intentions, your motives, or your every decision. Somewhere along the way, you may have picked up the habit of over-clarifying, of filling every silence with justification, of defending choices that don't require a defense. But here's the quiet truth. The more you explain, the less powerful you appear. Not because explanation is weakness in itself, but because constant explanation signals doubt. And doubt, when displayed carelessly, erodes authority. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Notice the simplicity. He doesn't say, "Convince others you're good." He doesn't say, "Debate your critics endlessly." He says, "Be it. Embody it. Let your actions speak with such clarity that words become unnecessary." When you over-explain, you shift the focus from your steady action to other people's opinions. You start orbiting their approval. And the moment you do that, you surrender your center. You need to feel this. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. Not everyone is entitled to your inner blueprint. When you explain yourself constantly, you train people to question you constantly. You teach them that your decisions are open for negotiation. You invite commentary where none was needed. And slowly, subtly, your energy drains away, not because you're wrong, but because you're talking too much about what you already decided. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That line stings. It challenges your ego. It asks you to tolerate misunderstanding without scrambling to correct it. You don't have to clarify every misconception. You don't have to rescue your image every time it's slightly bruised. Sometimes power lies in letting people think what they want while you continue building, working, evolving. Silence can be a shield. Silence can be discipline. This doesn't mean you become cold or uncommunicative. It means you become deliberate. You speak when it serves a purpose. You explain when it adds clarity that moves things forward. But you stop explaining out of anxiety. You stop clarifying just to soothe your fear of being judged. Ask yourself honestly, how often do you speak not because it's necessary but because you're uncomfortable with silence? How often do you justify a choice simply because someone raised an eyebrow? Here's a practice for you. For the next week, pause before you explain. Literally pause. When someone questions your decision, take one slow breath. Ask yourself, is this explanation required or am I seeking approval? If it's required, keep it brief. State your reasoning once, calmly, without emotional overtones. Then stop. No extra paragraphs, no defensive tone. Let your statement stand on its own legs. You'll feel exposed at first. That's normal. You've been cushioning your decisions with excessive words for years. Now you're removing the padding. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." There is bravery in brevity. There is freedom in not over-justifying your path. The more you trust your judgment, the less you feel the urge to defend it. and trust is built internally, not externally. You cultivate it by keeping promises to yourself, by acting consistently, by doing the work quietly. When your self-trust rises, your need for external validation shrinks. You must also understand something subtle. Constant explanation weakens your focus. Every time you defend yourself unnecessarily, you reopen a closed decision in your own mind. You start reconsidering, doubting, replaying conversations. Instead of moving forward, you linger in mental loops. Stoicism teaches you to conserve energy for what is within your control. Your effort, your character, your response, not the endless management of other people's interpretations. Try this second exercise. At the end of each day, journal briefly. Write down one moment where you felt the urge to over-explain. Then ask, what was I afraid of in that moment? Rejection, criticism, being misunderstood. You'll begin to see patterns, and once you see them, you can interrupt them. Awareness is the first layer of discipline. There's also something magnetic about restraint. When you don't rush to explain, your words carry more weight. When you do speak, people listen more closely. Your sentences become sharper because they are fewer. You're no longer scattering your authority in every direction. You're concentrating it. Think of speech as currency. Spend it recklessly and it loses value. Spend it wisely and it commands respect. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When someone misunderstands you, that's outside your control. When someone questions you, that too is outside your control. But your reaction, your impulse to over-defend, that's yours. That's where your power lives. Protect it. This is about detachment, not indifference. You still care about being clear. You still value honesty. But you stop performing explanations as a way to manage perception. You let your life become the explanation. Your consistency becomes the argument. Your calm becomes the rebuttal. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. You might sit in silence and feel the urge rising in your chest to add just one more thing. Don't. Stay with the discomfort. That discomfort is the withdrawal symptom of a habit you're breaking. Growth often feels like that, like standing still while your old impulses beg to be fed. Remind yourself daily, I do not need to explain what I know is aligned with my values. Say it quietly. Repeat it until it becomes natural. The Stoic path isn't loud, it's steady. It doesn't shout its reasoning from rooftops. It acts, it adjusts, it continues. Over time, you'll notice something profound. You'll feel lighter, more composed. Conversations will become simpler because you're no longer overextending yourself. You'll speak less, but your words will land deeper. And people may not even know why they respect you more, they'll just feel it. So start now. Choose one area of your life where you habitually over-explain. Commit to reducing your words by half, not your clarity, your excess. Trust that your actions can carry what your anxiety once tried to carry with endless sentences. Let your results speak. Let your discipline answer. Let your silence do its work. Say less, stand firm, move forward, and allow your power to grow in the quiet spaces where explanation once lived. Number 4, master the art of listening. Mastering the art of listening is one of the quietest forms of power you will ever possess. It doesn't look impressive on the surface. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need applause, but it changes everything. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That wasn't a poetic exaggeration. It was instruction, a rule for living, a discipline. And if you're willing to take it seriously, it can transform the way you move through the world. You've been conditioned to believe that power belongs to the loudest voice in the room, the fastest reply, the sharpest comeback. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, how often has speaking more actually given you more control? When you rush to fill silence, you give away information. When you argue to prove a point, you reveal emotional investment. When you interrupt, you surrender composure. Listening, on the other hand, centers you. It forces you to slow down, and slowness, when chosen deliberately, is strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice what he emphasizes: restraint. Before words leave your mouth, they must pass through judgment. That judgment only develops when you train yourself to observe first, to absorb, to understand. Listening sharpens discernment, it filters noise from substance. And in a world drowning in constant chatter, the one who listens becomes rare. You need to practice this intentionally, not casually, not when it's convenient. The next time someone speaks to you, resist the urge to prepare your response while they're still talking. Catch yourself doing it, because you do. Everyone does. Instead, anchor your attention on their words as if they are the only sound that exists. Notice their tone, their pace, their pauses. Don't analyze yet, just receive. This is not passivity, it is training your focus. There's a subtle shift that happens when you truly listen. Your mind stops racing to defend itself. You stop searching for validation. You begin to see conversations as opportunities to gather clarity rather than dominate. And clarity is power. The Stoics believe that wisdom begins with perception, seeing things as they are, not as your ego wants them to be. Listening refines perception. It strips away assumption. It humbles you. But this isn't about being silent for the sake of appearing calm. It's about internal quiet. That's harder. You can close your mouth and still be arguing in your head. You can nod while silently dismissing everything you hear. That's not mastery. Mastery is when your inner commentary slows down. When you allow ideas to land without immediately labeling them as right or wrong. Seneca advised, "Let us listen with a calm mind without prejudice." Without prejudice. That means without rushing to judgment, without clinging to identity. You must cultivate that calm deliberately. Start with small exercises. Today, choose one conversation where your only goal is to understand, not to impress. Ask one clarifying question instead of offering one opinion. Feel the restraint. It may feel uncomfortable at first. Good. Discomfort is evidence of growth. Then practice the pause. After someone finishes speaking, count to 3 in your mind before responding. This tiny gap gives your thoughts room to settle. It prevents reactive speech. Over time, that pause becomes your shield. Listening also strengthens emotional discipline. When someone says something provocative, your impulse is to respond instantly, to defend, to correct, to assert. But Epictetus warned, it is not things that disturb us but our judgments about them. When you listen fully before reacting, you gain a split second of freedom. In that second, you decide whether to escalate or remain steady. That is where your power lies, not in the words you unleash, but in the ones you withhold. Understand this clearly. When you speak less, people reveal more. Silence makes space. Space invites disclosure. Most individuals are eager to be heard. When you offer that gift, they often give you insight without realizing it. You learn motivation, fears, intention, not because you interrogated, but because you waited. This is strategic patience. And patience compounds like interest. Yet listening is not merely tactical, it shapes character, it softens arrogance. It reminds you that you do not possess all perspectives. The Stoics valued humility because it kept the mind flexible. A rigid mind shatters under pressure. A flexible one adapts. Listening stretches your thinking. It exposes blind spots. It strengthens judgment. You grow wiser not by speaking more, but by absorbing more. There's another layer here, listening to yourself. Not the anxious chatter, not the self-criticism, but the quieter voice beneath it. The one that knows when you are acting out of ego. The one that recognizes when you are about to say something unnecessary. Before you respond in any tense situation, ask yourself, is this essential? Is this aligned with who I claim to be? Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to return to his inner citadel, that steady place within. You must do the same. Make it a daily discipline. At the end of each day, reflect briefly. Where did you speak impulsively? Where did you interrupt? Where did you listen well? No judgment, just observation. This reflection sharpens awareness, and awareness precedes change. If you want to say less and achieve more, you must measure your words like a craftsman measures cuts, precisely, deliberately, without waste. You will notice something remarkable as you persist. People begin to lean in when you speak, because you no longer speak constantly. Your words carry weight, they are fewer but fuller. When you finally contribute, it is thoughtful, grounded, considered. That reputation builds quietly, and once established, it commands respect without force. Do not mistake this for weakness. Silence is not surrender. Listening is not submission. It is disciplined control over your impulses. It is emotional steadiness in action. It is strength expressed without noise. The loud often crave validation. The listener requires none, so train yourself today. In every conversation, choose restraint over reaction, curiosity over correction, pause over impulse. Let others exhaust their need to speak while you refine your ability to observe. Practice the 3-breath rule before responding. Ask one more question than you give opinions. Reflect each night on your verbal discipline. Over time, you will notice a shift, not just in how others respond to you, but in how you experience yourself. You will feel calmer, less entangled, more deliberate. Your words will become tools instead of reflexes, and that is the Stoic law of power in action. Say less, listen more, achieve quietly. Number 5, keep your intentions private. There's a quiet kind of power in moving without announcing your every step. You don't need to broadcast your next move to make it real. In fact, the more you speak about what you're about to do, the more you dilute the force behind it. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Notice the order. You say it to yourself, not to the crowd, not to the world, to yourself. Your intentions are sacred when they are kept within, protected from noise, untouched by opinions. When you guard them, they gather strength. When you scatter them in conversation, they lose intensity. So start practicing restraint. Let your goals sit quietly in your chest. Let them mature in silence. You might feel an urge to share, to declare your plans, to tell people what you're building, what you're changing, who you're becoming. It feels productive. It feels exciting. But pause. Ask yourself why you need to speak it. Is it clarity you seek or validation? Is it accountability or applause? The Stoic path asks you to look inward before you look outward. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." There's no mention of explaining, convincing, or announcing. Just being, just doing. The moment you stop narrating your transformation and begin living it quietly, you step into a different level of authority. Keeping your intentions private is not about secrecy born from fear. It's about focus born from discipline. When you speak too soon, you invite commentary. Opinions creep in. Doubt seeps through cracks you didn't even know were there. Energy that should be directed toward action gets redirected into defending your plan. And now you're exhausted before you've even begun. So try this instead. Hold your vision close. Let it be yours. Let it be something you return to in solitude. Protect it like a flame in the wind, not because others are malicious, but because your mind is impressionable. It absorbs what it hears. If you hear enough doubt, you may start believing it. There's another layer to this. When you talk about your intentions, your brain often mistakes the talking for progress. You feel a rush, a subtle satisfaction, as if you've already moved forward, but you haven't. The Stoics were obsessed with action aligned with virtue, not talk aligned with ego. Seneca warned, "Be most silent with yourself." That line cuts deep. Be silent with yourself. Not because you have nothing to say, but because your inner work requires stillness. It requires space. When you reduce the noise, you begin to hear your own reasoning more clearly. You sharpen your discipline. You become deliberate. Start small. Choose one goal you're working toward right now. Make a quiet commitment to yourself that you won't speak about it unless absolutely necessary. No subtle hints. No dramatic declarations. Just steady, consistent effort. Notice what happens. You may feel restless at first. You may crave acknowledgement. Sit with that feeling. Observe it. This is your training. The Stoics practiced observing their impulses without immediately obeying them. You can do the same. When you resist the urge to announce, you build self-command, and self-command is power. There's something magnetic about a person who moves quietly but produces results. They don't explain. They don't justify. They don't overpromise. They simply act. When outcomes speak, words become unnecessary. This is what say less, achieve more truly means. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about conserving your energy. Your words are energy. Your explanations are energy. Your arguments are energy. Spend them carefully. Direct them intentionally. If your intention is still fragile, still forming, don't expose it prematurely. You also free yourself from the burden of expectation when you keep your intentions private. Once you declare something publicly, you feel pressure to perform in a certain way. Sometimes that pressure fuels you. Often it traps you. It makes you rigid. The Stoic approach encourages flexibility guided by principle, not by public perception. When your goal evolves, you can adjust quietly. You can pivot without embarrassment. You can refine your direction without having to explain the shift to an audience. That freedom is invaluable. Try this practical exercise. Each morning, write down your primary intention for the day in a private journal. One sentence, clear and simple. Then close the journal and don't mention it to anyone. Throughout the day, act in alignment with that sentence. At night, reflect. Did your actions match your intention? This builds internal accountability. You become your own witness. You no longer need external applause to validate your effort. Another practice, deliberate silence. When you feel tempted to share a long-term plan, pause for 5 breaths. Slow, steady breaths. Inhale through your nose, exhale slowly. Ask yourself, will speaking this strengthen my resolve or weaken it? If the answer isn't clear, remain silent. Silence is not passivity, it is strategy, it is composure. It is the discipline of someone who knows that not everything needs to be revealed. Understand this, privacy amplifies focus. When your intention lives inside you, it becomes part of your identity. It shapes your choices subtly, consistently. You don't need to remind others what you're doing. You remind yourself through action, and that consistency builds confidence. Not the loud kind, the grounded kind. The kind that doesn't shake when someone questions you, because you never sought their approval in the first place. This doesn't mean you isolate yourself or reject guidance. Stoicism is not about arrogance. It's about inner sovereignty. Share when it serves growth, not when it feeds ego. Speak when collaboration is necessary, not when you're chasing recognition. There's a difference. Learn to feel it. The more you practice, the clearer it becomes. Imagine how much sharper you would be if you redirected all the energy spent talking about your goals into actually pursuing them. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of progress that only you are aware of. There's a certain sweetness in that, a calm pride. It's yours alone. And when the results finally emerge, they arrive without fanfare, without warning. They simply exist, solid, undeniable. You don't need to announce your ascent. Climb. You don't need to declare your discipline. Practice. You don't need to convince anyone of your transformation. Become. Let your life be the evidence. Let your composure speak. Let your results whisper what your mouth never had to say. This is the Stoic law of power. Keep your intentions private, nurture them with action, protect them with silence, and reveal them only through achievement. Number 6. Use silence to create respect. Be silent for the most part, or speak merely what is necessary and in few words. That was the advice of Epictetus, and it wasn't about being timid. It was about power, real power, the kind that doesn't beg to be noticed, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice to command attention. When you learn to use silence intentionally, you stop chasing respect and start attracting it. You've probably felt the impulse to explain yourself, to justify your decisions, to fill every pause so you won't seem awkward or unprepared. That impulse is natural, but it's also draining. Every unnecessary word leaks a little bit of your authority. When you over-explain, you unconsciously signal doubt. When you rush to respond, you reveal reactivity. But when you pause, when you let the air settle and hold your ground, you communicate something different. You communicate control. Silence is not emptiness, it's presence, it's a decision, and you need to start treating it like one. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice that he didn't say everything you think. He drew a boundary around speech. You should too. Before you speak, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this adding strength to my position? Or am I just trying to soothe my own discomfort? Most of the time, you'll realize you're about to speak for emotional relief, not clarity. That's your cue to stay quiet. When you stop reacting instantly, people begin to lean in. They start wondering what you're thinking. Your words gain weight because they are no longer cheap. Think of speech as currency. If you spend it recklessly, it loses value. If you invest it carefully, it appreciates. So here's a practice. The next time you're in a conversation, deliberately slow your responses. When someone finishes speaking, count 2 full breaths before replying. Feel the tension that rises in you. Don't rush to erase it. Sit with it. This tiny delay will feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is growth. Over time, it will transform you. You'll become measured, intentional, unshaken. Silence also protects your energy. Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." A lot of unnecessary speech is driven by imagined threats, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being disliked, fear of losing control. But when you refuse to rush into defense mode, you signal to yourself that you are safe, that you don't need to scramble for approval, that your worth doesn't depend on constant explanation. You must train yourself to detach from the need to win every exchange. When someone challenges you, resist the urge to counter immediately. Let your quietness do the work. Calm silence unsettles aggression. It creates a mirror. The other person becomes more aware of their own noise, and you remain composed. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become precise. When you finally speak, your words should land cleanly, short, direct. No emotional leakage. You're not performing. You're not persuading frantically. You're stating your position and standing by it. Start practicing verbal minimalism. Answer questions with exactly what's required, nothing more. If something doesn't deserve your commentary, let it pass. If someone is fishing for a reaction, deny them the bait. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. That restraint builds quiet dominance. There's another layer to this. Silence forces you inward. When you talk less, you observe more. You begin to notice tone shifts, subtle behaviors, your own internal reactions. You become strategic. You respond instead of react. This is how you build influence without noise. Try this daily exercise. Set a period of intentional quiet each day, even 10 minutes. No phone, no conversation, no stimulation, just you and your thoughts. Watch how restless your mind becomes. Watch how badly it wants distraction. That's the same restlessness that drives unnecessary speech. If you can master silence alone, you'll master it among others. Another exercise, for 1 week, eliminate filler words from your vocabulary. No nervous laughter. No overqualifying statements. No unnecessary apologies. Speak in complete thoughts. Then stop. This discipline will reshape how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself. Respect grows in space. When you are always available, always explaining, always reacting, you become predictable. But when you are selective with your words, you create mystery. Not manipulation, not coldness, just depth. People sense when someone is grounded enough not to perform for attention. Epictetus also said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." That ratio is wisdom. Listening is not passive, it's powerful. It gathers information. It reveals motives. It sharpens judgment. The person who speaks less often understands more. And understanding is leverage. You don't need to announce your ambitions. You don't need to broadcast your plans. Let your results speak. The Stoic path is about internal strength, not external noise. When you stop narrating your every move, you conserve focus. You act quietly. You build quietly. And when the outcome appears, it carries more force because it wasn't diluted by endless talk. Silence also builds self-respect. when you choose not to engage in gossip, not to defend against every minor criticism, not to overshare your vulnerabilities with those who haven't earned it, you reinforce a boundary. You tell yourself, my inner world is not for casual access. That boundary creates dignity, but you must be consistent. You can't use silence as a tactic one day and abandon it the next when emotions flare. Discipline is what makes it credible. The Stoics didn't preach occasional restraint. They practiced daily mastery. Here's a final challenge. For the next 30 days, adopt the rule of necessary speech. Before speaking, run it through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind or at least constructive? If it fails any gate, reconsider. This will dramatically reduce your verbal clutter, and as your words decrease, your presence will increase. At first, people may misread your silence. Let them. You're not here to manage every interpretation. Over time, they will adjust. They will realize you don't speak to impress. You speak with purpose. And when you do, they will listen. Remember this. Loudness is often insecurity disguised as confidence. Calm restraint is strength that doesn't need decoration. When you say less, you force your actions to matter more. When you resist the urge to fill every gap, you become the most grounded person in the room, so practice stillness. Embrace pauses. Let silence stretch without fear. Your quiet is not weakness, it is controlled fire, it is measured force. It is self-command made visible. And when you master it, respect will follow, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Number 7, answer with precision, not volume. Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. Plato, that line hits harder the older you get. And even though Plato wasn't a Stoic, the Stoics lived this truth with ruthless discipline. You don't gain power by flooding the room with words. You gain it by mastering them, by trimming them, by choosing them like a blade instead of throwing them like confetti. Answer with precision, not volume. Let that sink in. You've been conditioned to believe that more explanation equals more control. That if you just clarify a little more, justify a little better, defend yourself a little longer, you'll win the exchange. But look closely at that impulse. It's rarely strength. It's anxiety dressed up as logic. It's the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of not being approved, the fear of losing influence. And the Stoics would tell you to pause right there. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Notice the ratio. It's deliberate. You are designed to absorb more than you emit. When you speak less, you see more. You detect tone, intention, gaps, tension. You become strategic instead of reactive. And strategy always outperforms noise. Precision begins in restraint. Before you respond, breathe. Literally, create a fraction of space between stimulus and reply. In that space lives your power. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Your mouth is an extension of your mind. If your mind is steady, your words will be sharp and few. If your mind is chaotic, your words will spill everywhere. Train yourself to ask, what is the essential point? Strip everything else away. Most conversations are bloated with filler, repetition, over-explaining, nervous elaboration. You don't need all that. You need clarity. A single sentence that lands cleanly is more commanding than 5 minutes of rambling defense. Short statements carry weight because they show you're not scrambling for validation. There's a quiet dominance in someone who answers directly and stops. No trailing justification. No frantic add-ons. Just a clear response delivered calmly, then silence. Silence is not weakness. It's punctuation. It forces others to sit with what you said. It makes your words echo. Seneca warned, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Apply that not just to anger but to speech itself. Delay your impulse to elaborate. Delay your need to correct every misunderstanding instantly. Delay your urge to fill every gap. You'll notice something powerful. Most of what you wanted to say wasn't necessary. It was emotional excess. Here's a simple practice. For the next 7 days, cut your responses in half. If you would normally explain something in 6 sentences, use 3. If you would normally argue 10 points, state 1 or 2. You'll feel uncomfortable at first. Good. That discomfort reveals how attached you are to verbal control. Stay with it. Precision is forged through discipline. Another exercise, pause for 3 seconds before answering any emotionally charged question. Count silently. Let your body settle. Then respond in one clear sentence. Not a paragraph, not a speech. One sentence. This forces your brain to filter what truly matters. It teaches you to separate reaction from intention. When you answer with precision, you signal self-possession. You show that you are not easily provoked, not desperate to convince, not scrambling to defend your identity. And that changes how people treat you. They sense boundaries. They sense certainty. They sense that you don't need to overwhelm them to stand your ground. But precision isn't coldness, it's focus. You're not becoming distant, you're becoming deliberate. The Stoic aim was not silence for its own sake. It was alignment, speech aligned with reason. Ask yourself before speaking, is this true? Is it necessary? Is it within my control to say? If it fails those tests, let it die unspoken. You'll discover something almost unsettling. The fewer words you use, the more carefully people listen. Excess talk invites interruption. Concise talk commands attention. When you speak sparingly, each word feels chosen, measured, intentional. That's influence. And let's be honest, you don't always need to respond at all. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every challenge requires your defense. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Notice what he didn't include. If it bothers you, explain it endlessly. The Stoic standard is higher. It's about integrity, not persuasion. So start practicing verbal minimalism. Remove qualifiers like I just think or maybe this is wrong, but speak cleanly, stand behind your words. When you're unsure, say, I'll think about that. When you disagree, say, I see it differently. And stop. Let that be enough. You may fear that speaking less will make you invisible. It won't. It will make you distinct. In a world addicted to commentary, restraint is rare, and rarity is power. There's another layer to this, internal precision. Before you can answer others with clarity, you must answer yourself with clarity. What do you actually believe? What do you actually value? If your inner dialogue is cluttered, your outer speech will be too. Spend time refining your thoughts privately. Journal briefly. Distill your ideas into tight statements. Practice saying complex beliefs in simple language. This is mental sharpening. Try this nightly ritual. At the end of your day, reflect on one conversation where you spoke too much. Don't judge yourself, just observe. Ask, what was I trying to gain? Approval, control, relief. Then imagine how you could have expressed the same core message in fewer words. Rehearse that version mentally. Over time, you'll rewire your habits. Remember, you are not obligated to perform intelligence. You are not required to narrate every layer of your reasoning. True confidence doesn't explain itself endlessly. It trusts itself. Epictetus taught that it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. The same applies to speech. It's not the question that forces you into long-winded defense. It's your judgment that you must justify yourself fully. Challenge that assumption. You are allowed to be brief. Precision also protects your energy. Words cost focus. They drain clarity when scattered carelessly. By conserving them, you conserve yourself. And when you finally do speak at length, it will be deliberate, not impulsive. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, stop. Breathe. Ask, what is the essential truth here? Say that, nothing more. Let silence carry the rest. You'll notice a shift. Your mind will feel calmer. Your presence will feel steadier. Your words will feel heavier in the best way, because they're no longer filler, they're chosen. And over time, this habit reshapes you. You become someone who doesn't chase the last word. Someone who doesn't scramble to defend every angle. Someone who speaks with clarity and then moves forward. Say less. Mean more. Train your tongue like a disciplined warrior trains a blade. Keep it sharp. Keep it controlled. Use it only when it serves reason. Answer with precision, not volume. And watch how your silence begins to speak for you. Number 8, don't react to provocations immediately. When someone provokes you, your first impulse is almost never your wisest one. It rises fast, hot, and demanding. It wants to speak now. It wants to defend, correct, attack, justify. But the Stoic law of power asks something different of you. It asks you to pause, to breathe, to refuse the bait. As Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. The sting you feel is not the words thrown at you. It is your interpretation of them. And that interpretation can be interrupted. You don't have to react on cue. You don't have to perform anger just because someone expects it. You can choose silence. You can choose delay. You can choose control. Right now, begin practicing the smallest space between stimulus and response. That space is where your power lives. When a comment hits you, instead of answering, take one slow breath. Let it fill your lungs completely. Then let it go slowly. Do it again. Feel how the urgency softens, even slightly. You are not suppressing emotion. You are observing it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Notice that he didn't say you have power over other people's words. You don't, but you absolutely have authority over your reaction. And that authority is earned in moments like these. When you react immediately, you hand over control. You become predictable, easy to manipulate. Anyone can push a button and watch you spark. But when you delay, when you look unshaken, when your voice remains steady or absent altogether, something shifts. The energy changes. You are no longer playing their game. You are writing your own script. Silence in the face of provocation is not weakness, it is discipline. It signals that your emotions are not public property. They are governed territory. Train yourself to question the first story your mind tells you. Ask quietly, is this worth my peace? Then go deeper. Will reacting right now improve anything? Often, the honest answer is no. So why rush? Why burn fuel on a fire that will extinguish itself if you simply refuse to fan it? Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Not explanation, not argument, delay. Let time dilute the intensity. Give yourself permission to respond later or not at all. There is strength in that restraint. Make this a daily exercise. Intentionally practice micro delays. When you feel irritation, count slowly to 5 before speaking. When your heart rate jumps, relax your jaw and unclench your fists. Soften your shoulders. These small physical cues tell your mind that you are safe. They break the chain reaction. You begin to build a new reflex, calm before comment, stillness before speech. This is not passive, it is strategic. You may think that if you don't react instantly, you'll seem weak or indecisive, but consider the opposite. What looks more powerful, someone who flares up at every challenge or someone who remains composed, measured, and intentional? Power is quiet. It does scramble. It doesn't chase. It waits. It observes. It chooses. When you refuse immediate reaction, you communicate that your state cannot be easily disturbed. That is intimidating in the most elegant way. There's another layer here. When you react quickly, you often speak from ego. You try to defend an image, protect pride, win a moment. But Stoicism invites you to detach from that fragile self-image. If someone despises me, that is their problem, Marcus Aurelius wrote. My only concern is not doing or saying anything deserving of contempt. That's your standard, not their tone, not their attitude, your character. Anchor yourself there. Ask, what would my highest self do right now? Then act from that place, not from wounded pride. Practice reframing. When you feel provoked, tell yourself this is training, not punishment, not insult, training. Each irritation is a rep in the gym of composure. Each sharp word is a chance to strengthen patience. If you lean into this mindset, you begin to welcome the opportunity to refine yourself. You stop seeing provocations as threats and start seeing them as tests, and you rise to them by not reacting. Create a simple ritual for yourself. When you sense tension building, press your tongue lightly to the roof of your mouth and breathe slowly through your nose. Keep your lips closed. Let your eyes soften. This physical stillness reinforces mental stillness. Stay there for a few seconds longer than feels comfortable. Notice how the urge to speak begins to lose its grip. You are proving to yourself that impulses are temporary, They crest and fall. You don't have to ride every wave. Also, commit to shortening your responses. If you do choose to speak, make it brief, measured, free of emotional excess. Say only what is necessary, then stop. Don't explain yourself into exhaustion. Don't defend every angle. Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue, Zeno warned. Let your words be few and intentional. The less you say, the less you can regret. The more you conserve your energy for meaningful action. Understand this clearly. Not reacting immediately does not mean you tolerate disrespect or injustice. It means you choose the timing and tone of your response. It means you respond from clarity, not chaos. There's a profound difference. Reaction is automatic. Response is deliberate. One drains you. The other strengthens you. You are not denying emotion. You are mastering it. Tonight, reflect on moments when you reacted too quickly. Not with shame, but with curiosity. What did it cost you? How did it feel afterward? Then imagine how it would have felt to pause instead. Visualize yourself calm, centered, unhurried. Rehearse that version of you in your mind. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, anticipating challenges before they happen. Do the same. Picture future provocations and see yourself handling them with poise. The mind that rehearses calm becomes calm. You don't need to win every exchange. You need to win control over yourself. That's the real victory. Every time you refuse to react instantly, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. You become less driven by external triggers and more guided by internal principles. Over time, people notice. They sense that you are not easily rattled. They realize their attempts to provoke fall flat. And without you saying much at all, your presence grows heavier, steadier, more respected. So the next time you feel that spark, don't rush to extinguish it with words. Let it burn quietly inside without spreading. Breathe, wait, choose, say less, achieve more. Your silence in that moment is not emptiness, it is power gathering itself. Number 9, observe more, comment less. You live in a world that rewards noise, quick replies, instant opinions, constant commentary. You're almost trained to react before you've even fully seen what's happening. But the Stoics understood something you're only now beginning to realize. Power grows in silence. Strength gathers in observation. Clarity forms when you stop trying to fill every gap with words. When you choose to observe more and comment less, you shift from being a participant in chaos to becoming a student of reality. And that changes everything. Right now, you probably feel the pull to respond to everything, to correct, to defend, to prove. But what if you paused? What if instead of jumping in, you leaned back internally and watched? Not passively, not weakly, but attentively, intentionally. When you observe, you see patterns others miss. You notice tone, posture, energy. You detect motives behind words. You sense insecurity disguised as confidence. You start reading between the lines, and that awareness gives you leverage. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Observation is how you exercise that power. When you watch without immediately reacting, you reclaim your mind from impulse. You stop being dragged around by every stimulus. You begin to choose. This is not about being silent because you are unsure. It is about being silent because you are grounded. There's a difference. When you comment less, you conserve energy. Words cost you more than you think. Every explanation drains a little focus. Every unnecessary opinion pulls your attention outward. But when you hold your tongue, your energy stays with you. It sharpens, it consolidates, it becomes deliberate. Start practicing this today. In your next conversation, decide in advance that you will speak last, not as a trick, not as manipulation, but as discipline. Listen fully. Let others empty their thoughts. Watch how much they reveal when you are not competing for airtime. You'll notice that people often expose their priorities, fears, and intentions simply because you gave them space. And here's the part that might surprise you. Silence unsettles the impulsive. When you don't rush to comment, others project meaning onto your quiet. They wonder what you're thinking. They reassess their own words. Your restraint creates gravity, But this only works if your silence is calm, not tense. If you're quiet but internally boiling, that's suppression, not strength. The Stoics were clear about this. Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Craving the last word is a kind of poverty. It's a hunger for validation. Release that hunger. You don't need to win every exchange. You don't need to correct every misconception. You don't need to prove your intelligence in real time. True power doesn't rush to demonstrate itself. Here's a simple exercise. For 1 week, cut your verbal reactions in half. If you normally respond immediately, wait 5 seconds. If you normally offer 3 points, offer 1. If you feel the urge to interrupt, breathe instead. Notice the discomfort. That discomfort is your ego resisting discipline. Stay with it. Another practice: at the end of each day, reflect quietly. Ask yourself, where did I speak unnecessarily? Where could observation have served me better? Don't judge yourself. Just observe your own behavior the way you observe others. This is how you refine your presence. Observation is not only external, it is internal. When something triggers you, watch the sensation rise. Notice the tightening in your chest, the rush of heat, the impulse to respond sharply. Instead of acting, narrate it internally. This is anger, this is pride, this is fear. By labeling the emotion, you create distance, and in that distance you find choice. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Observation inserts a gap between stimulus and reaction. That gap is your freedom. You might worry that speaking less will make you invisible. It won't. It will make you intentional. When you do speak, your words will carry weight because they are not constant. They will be measured, precise, necessary. Think about this carefully. The person who comments on everything eventually blends into background noise. The one who speaks selectively becomes memorable. You're not aiming to be loud. You're aiming to be effective. Train yourself to ask before speaking, is this necessary? Is it helpful? It aligned with who I want to become? If the answer is no, let it go. Silence is often the stronger move, and here's a deeper layer. When you observe more, you learn more. You gather data. You study human nature. You refine judgment. You see consequences unfold. Instead of being caught in emotional crossfire, you're analyzing patterns. This turns everyday interactions into lessons. You become strategic without becoming cold. Don't misunderstand this path. You are not withdrawing from life. You are engaging with it more intelligently. You are trading impulsive noise for deliberate presence. There will be moments when speaking up is necessary. Stoicism is not muteness, it is mastery. When you choose to speak after observing fully, your words will be clean, direct, unburdened by ego. And because you didn't rush, they will land with force. Make observation your daily ritual. Spend 5 minutes in stillness each morning, simply noticing your thoughts. No commentary. No correction, just awareness. This strengthens the mental muscle you need in conversations, the ability to witness without reacting. Gradually, you'll notice something profound. You feel less drained, less entangled, less reactive. You begin to move through situations with quiet composure. Others may not even understand what changed, but they will sense it. Your presence becomes steady, grounded, and in that steadiness you find power. You don't need to announce your wisdom. You don't need to narrate your every thought. Let your actions speak. Let your restraint communicate confidence. Let your silence reveal strength. Observe more, comment less. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you choose when to say it. Not because you are passive, but because you are disciplined. Not because you fear judgment, but because you no longer need constant validation. This is how you say less and achieve more, by watching carefully, by speaking deliberately, by mastering your reactions, by conserving your energy. Start today. In your next interaction, pause. Listen, notice. Then decide if words are truly required. You'll be surprised how often they aren't. And in that quiet space you create, your power begins to grow. Number 10, let results prove your value. There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase applause. It simply works. And when it's done, it lets the outcome speak. If you truly want to live the Stoic law of power, say less, achieve more, You must train yourself to let results prove your value. Not your promises, not your explanations, not your defenses, your results. You've probably felt the temptation to explain yourself, to justify your path, to tell people what you're about to do, how you're going to do it, and why they should respect you for it. But the Stoics would gently pull you back from that urge. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That line cuts deep, because it exposes how often you trade action for speech. How often you seek validation before you've built substance. If you want authority, stop narrating your intentions, start executing them. There's something almost intoxicating about talking about your goals. It feels productive. It feels bold, but words create an illusion of progress. They give you a temporary high without requiring the discipline of follow-through. The Stoic path asks more of you. It asks you to become allergic to empty declarations. It asks you to replace the need to be seen trying with the commitment to actually finish. So begin with restraint. When you feel the urge to announce your next move, pause, take a breath, ask yourself, would I still do this if no one knew about it? That question reveals your motives. If your commitment weakens when there's no audience, then it was never about mastery. It was about attention. And attention is fleeting. Results endure. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." You can apply that directly to your ambitions. Waste no more time explaining how capable you are. Be capable. Waste no more time insisting you deserve respect. Become undeniably valuable. When your work carries weight, you won't need to carry your reputation on your shoulders. It will walk ahead of you. This requires patience, real patience, the kind that endures silence without panic. When you stop oversharing your plans, there will be moments where you feel invisible, unnoticed, maybe even underestimated. Let that happen. Underestimation is not an insult. It is a strategic advantage. It gives you space to grow without pressure. It allows your focus to deepen without distraction. Use it. You must also train yourself to detach from the need for immediate recognition. The Stoics were relentless about this. They reminded themselves daily that external praise and blame are not within your control. What is within your control is effort, consistency, integrity. When you obsess over being acknowledged, you dilute your energy. But when you obsess over doing the work well, your energy sharpens, it condenses, it becomes dangerous in the best way. Here's a simple exercise. For the next 30 days, make a rule. Speak only about completed tasks, never about future ones. Don't tell people what you're planning. Don't hint at your grand strategy. Let your conversations revolve around what you've already done, or better yet, don't bring it up at all. Observe what happens to your focus. You'll notice a shift. Your mind stops performing and starts building. Another practice: at the end of each day, write down 3 measurable actions you took that moved you forward. Not what you thought about, not what you intended, what you actually did. This anchors your identity in execution. It rewires your sense of worth from potential to performance. And slowly, you stop craving applause because you're too busy improving. There's also a quiet dignity in letting time reveal your progress. Seneca said, "Time discovers truth." You don't have to convince anyone of your growth. You don't have to debate your competence. Over time, patterns become undeniable. Consistency compounds. Quiet effort accumulates. The truth surfaces. And when it does, it carries more authority than any speech you could have given. You may fear that staying quiet will cause you to be overlooked, but ask yourself this: do you want shallow recognition now or deep respect later? Because you rarely get both at the same time. Shallow recognition rewards noise. Deep respect rewards substance. Choose carefully. When you let results prove your value, you free yourself from fragile ego. You no longer panic when someone doubts you. Doubt becomes irrelevant. You don't scramble to defend your worth. You don't engage in unnecessary debates. You simply return to your work. That's strength. That's stability. That's power. There's a discipline in holding your tongue when you could boast. There's maturity in declining to broadcast your progress. You begin to understand that every unnecessary word leaks energy. Every explanation you didn't need to give drains focus. Silence, on the other hand, stores power. It concentrates it. Try this mental shift. Instead of asking, "How do I get them to see my value?" Ask, "How do I increase my value?" One question is external, the other is internal. One depends on perception, the other depends on action. Direct your attention inward. Build skill, build resilience, build discipline. When your foundation is solid, you don't need to decorate it with constant commentary. You'll also notice something subtle. When you stop talking about what you're going to achieve, your anxiety decreases. Because you're no longer creating expectations you feel pressured to meet publicly. You're working privately, and private work is calmer, it's focused, it's free from the noise of comparison. This doesn't mean you never communicate. It means you communicate with intention. You speak when it adds value, not when it feeds insecurity. You share insights after you've earned them. You let your voice be the final touch, not the starting point. Over time, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone with big plans and start seeing yourself as someone who delivers. That shift changes everything. It affects how you walk into rooms. It affects how you handle criticism. It affects how you handle success. You become grounded, unshaken. And here's the paradox: the less you try to prove yourself, the more proof you generate, because your energy is no longer scattered across explanations and defenses. It is invested, focused, compounding. So commit to this. Resist the urge to declare. Replace it with discipline. Replace it with daily, often boring, consistent effort. Let your work mature in silence. Let your progress unfold without commentary. Let time, not talk, be your advocate. In the end, power doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to the person who can quietly build something undeniable. And you can be that person, not by speaking more, but by doing more. Not by chasing validation, but by creating value. Say less. Execute more. And let the results speak in a language no one can argue with. Remember what the Stoics teach us: true power is quiet. It's not in loud declarations, flashy displays, or desperate attempts to be seen. It's in restraint, in measured words, in letting your actions carry the weight your voice cannot. When you say less, you open space for observation, for strategy, and for respect to naturally follow. People notice, and more importantly, they respond, not to your noise, but to your composure. So take a step back. Speak only when it serves purpose. Act with intention. Let your presence, your consistency, and your results do the talking. As Epictetus reminds us, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The same is true of influence. True power isn't proven by how much you say, but by what you quietly achieve. Carry this law into your life and watch doors open without you ever needing to shout.